Welcome to Blackhawks Banter, our weekly show where we discuss everything Chicago Blackhawks. This is actually our 21st episode, so as Greg would say, it is our Stan Mikita show.
Nicely done.
But I'm already digressing. We are brought to you by the Hockey Writers, and you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever your social media platform is that you prefer, we are there. Let's see, we're joined. Let me tell you our crew tonight. My slightly younger sister, Brooke LoFurno.
Hi.
Hockey historian and man with the flow, Greg Boysen is here. And of course, we have our Canadian friend and former goaltender, Shaun Filippelli. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Great. I am Gail Kauchak. I'll be leading the discussion tonight. We actually were pretty happy around here because the Blackhawks swept the Panthers last week, but then we were not very happy over the weekend because the Blackhawks got swept by the Nashville Predators. So unfortunately, that's not too good. But let's get right down to our star of the week here, which is posted earlier today. Shaun, you took the reins on that one. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your star of the week?
Yeah, for sure. Much like the rest of Blackhawks Nation, seeing Dach come back, I'm sure made us all want to jump for joy and think that, here's our star of the week. And I'm not even going to lie to you, I had him penciled thinking he was going to have a big weekend and he might get those honors. But when you watch the rest of the week and see kind of what this team did with and without him in the lineup, and you took a look at some other players who even had big games throughout the week, Kane, DeBrincat, etc. One player stood out to me, and for all the right reasons, and it was Pius Suter. Suter's been obviously a streaky scorer in his first tenure here with the Blackhawks, but he's obviously shown what he can do, and it was nice to see him do that again this past week. Even though they only had a 2-2 record, he showed up every game. Literally, he went on a mini streak there with 3 goals in 3 games, and ended off the week still with a point streak of 5 points in 4. So I had to give him credit where it was due. He had gone 6 games pointless prior to that, so he's obviously streaking for the right reasons now, and I wanted to give him the kudos and hope that'll show some momentum for things to come.
Awesome. Yeah, I think he was. I thought you were probably going to pick him. He was a good choice. Okay, so let's the rest of us just kind of recap our thoughts about last week. If you want to, highlight a particular player, if you want to talk about a certain aspect of the game, whatever comes to mind to you that kind of stood out. So we'll go ahead and start with Brooke.
So Florida, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I really did not think we would. I mean, you kind of hope you're going to pull one out. I mean, I thought it would be hard for Florida to lose 8 straight, so I'm kind of glad that we were able to sweep them. We kind of already lost this series with them, but that was just kind of a nice to end it that way. And Nashville, I don't know what it is about Nashville that we can't beat Nashville. I don't get it. Shaun, we talked about this already. They stink, and I stand by that. So I don't know what it is. It's like we just forget how to play hockey when we face Nashville. I don't know. To me, it seemed like, honestly, that Nashville kind of came out really hot. I know they've been on a hot streak, but we were kind of coming in on a hot streak too, having beat Florida. So I kind of wish their determination or energy was a lot higher than it actually was, because that made it really disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. Greg, what would you have to say about last week?
Well, just to comment on the Nashville series, I think based on the 4 games that we've seen, we can stop this nonsense about Jeremy Colleton winning the Jack Adams Award. It's 4 games against Nashville, and they still can't figure out how to beat the forecheck. Make a freaking adjustment already. It's infuriating. So let's stop with the Colleton for Coach of the Year award until he learns how to not tell his forwards to go to the neutral zone waiting for that stress pass that's never going to get there against the Predators. Just make an adjustment. But kudos to him. He finally used the timeout with 0.7 seconds left to go in the game. So baby steps. That made me laugh. Anywho, as far as positives, good players, I gotta give a tip of the cap to the goaltending. It bounced back this week. Lankinen was great against Florida. We needed that. We talked about him last week, and it looked like he listened to the show and took it to heart and had 2 really good games. Subban was really good against Nashville, you can't really pin any of those goals on him. Yeah, that play behind the net on the first one, you probably don't want him to do that, but that still got kicked in off his own guy. Dahan kicked in 2 goals essentially, and the third one was off of an awful turnover, which was a problem all week long. So it's good to see the goaltending get back into the grooves, and they're going to need, as I said on Twitter, if the Blackhawks are going to make the playoffs, the most important person in making that happen is going to be Kevin Lankinen down the stretch. So it was very good to see him look like the Calder candidate we called him earlier this season.
Yeah, he did really seem to bounce back, and so hopefully that's going to be a trend going forward. I would have to say that I agree with y'all that the Panther series was really refreshing, and then the Predator series was the complete opposite. And it's funny because I think we all predicted that the Blackhawks are going to get 3 or 4 points out of these 4 games, which they did, but it was the opposite. We kind of thought that maybe they'd win, get some more points against the Predators and not the Panthers. So it's funny because I guess what I'd like to bring up is Alex DeBrincat, when he was interviewed after this last game, that he was pretty honest and straightforward and just said, we've lost our identity. We have to get back to that relentless style of play that we played and the way that we were winning at the beginning of the year. And it's just, I guess that's what's so frustrating right now about this Blackhawks team is that they look really good and you get really excited, and then, they kind of crap the bed, so to speak. So they just are still working on their consistency. You can see the talent there. Speaking of talent, let's get on to our next topic. As we all know, the big news this week was that Kirby Dach returned. He actually was supposed to have a 4 to 5 month timeline based on his fractured wrist, and he was back in 3 months. So that's really, really awesome that he worked hard and that he's back, and we're all, I'm sure, very excited. So what we did actually in our preview post that comes out usually over the weekend, to talk about, give a sneak peek about what happens on this show. I asked us all to, kind of give our predictions of where we thought that Dach would fit into the lineup. And wouldn't you know it, I think it was that night or the very next day that he was in the lineup. So I guess what we can do here is talk about what we did predict, what actually happened, and, just your thoughts on Dach with his first 2 games back. So let's go ahead and start with Brooke.
So one, I think we were all pretty surprised about that. They did a really good job of keeping that under wraps, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But I will say I'm a bit concerned. I think he looked fine, like how you would probably expect him to, but he did say he was still feeling some discomfort in his wrist. And then he got hit really hard yesterday. So I am kind of worried about him coming back too fast and re-injuring himself. And then now we're back to square one. So I will say I am a little concerned about that. I hope the team wasn't like rushing him to try to get him back. I mean, he's needed, but long-term health-wise, I don't know. But other than that, it was really great to see him. The team really needs him, and but like I said, I'm a little bit concerned, but I'm glad that he's back.
All right. Greg, what do you think about Dach? Kirby.
I didn't think he'd be back this soon. I thought it'd still be another couple weeks, just based on the original timeline, but 20-year-olds heal a lot faster than someone in my age group. So good for him. About the concerns about coming back too fast. Those are legit concerns, Brooke. I would, if it was like a torn ligament or some sort of surgery, I'd be a little more cautious, but broken bones, once they kind of heal, they're kind of healed. So, obviously you don't want to see him out there being at risk, but I'm glad he's back. It was about what you'd expect to see out of a guy that hasn't played in a few months, especially at the NHL level. He had that brutal turnover last night, that cost him the game ultimately. So hopefully that's what coaches love to say, that's a teaching point, a learning moment. And I'm sure he felt a little uncomfortable in the video room today, but that's part of the growing process. So yeah, it's great to see him back out there. And I like the attitude that they're going to just let him play as much as possible. And he's going to be a big part on what happens as far as if this team makes the playoffs or not. I'm on board. Let's get him out there. Let's get him playing, put him in every situation, and get some of that development we were hoping for.
Okay, sounds good. Shaun, what do you think?
Yeah, not much of a hot take as far as my prediction went. I think we all could have probably foreseen that they would slot him in probably in the bottom six, and then he'd kind of move up and down the lineup. It just seemed to fit Colleton's mindset, and that's basically what happened when he came back. So again, I wasn't overly surprised as far as what I had predicted and then where he was slotted in. As far as his play, I'm going to just echo what Brooke and Greg have already said. He obviously looked a little shaky. He didn't look like his normal self, but I think we all need to kind of take a breath and realize he's 2 games back from an injury that he wasn't expected to be back this soon. So he's obviously going to still take some time to get comfortable and get his groove back, so to speak. To Brooke's concern and Greg's point, Greg hit it on the head. A broken bone is obviously a lot better than a torn ligament or anything of that nature. It's going to recalcify. It's going to be stronger. He'll be fine, especially as a 20-year-old kid. So I wouldn't be too concerned there. And the reality is his discomfort, I think, is just the simple fact that he just hasn't played. So I think he'll get back into his groove. He'll be comfortable. He'll be just fine. Like Greg said, the Hawks need him to be just fine. So, he was obviously visible in some of these games. He made some good plays, but he had some blunders. What do you expect? He's coming back after a long layoff here, and he's going to be just fine. And the Hawks need him to at least infuse the confidence that he will moving forward.
Okay, I think we all, well, that's not true. I think I predicted that, and so did Greg, that we predicted that he would right back on that first line, which is kind of funny. He kind of went back and forth. But what I liked about, let's see, who did he start with? He was centering Kane and Janmark, and then Kubalik and Hagel, right? So Brooke, I think you said he was going to be on the second line, which they're experimenting. Obviously, they're experimenting, but it's good to see. And what I liked is Colleton said we're going to use him a lot, and I guess he wasn't kidding, because he logged over 20 minutes on Saturday, over 20 minutes on Sunday. He's not really being sheltered. He's taking face-offs. So it's pretty exciting that he's back, and I think that he's definitely going to boost the team as soon as he gets up to speed here a little bit. So. Moving on, a question was actually submitted by one of our readers that I thought we could all address. It's pretty short and sweet and honest, and it is something that Blackhawks fans have always questioned and have been questioning for quite some time. So here's the question. Defense. What are the Blackhawks going to do about defense? So it's true that the Blackhawks are currently, 8th in the league in goals given up. And they are 5th in the league in high danger chances allowed. So what are your thoughts on the state of the defense, to answer the question? And let's go ahead and start with Greg.
This is an interesting one. As far as like the future of our actual defensemen, I think we're in good shape. Got some good young talent coming up, getting their reps in. As far as the team defense as a whole, I don't necessarily think it's a personnel problem we're seeing. It's a structure problem. It's the system. I've been bitching about this forever, and nothing seems to change. Just keep it simple. Go back to just what everybody else plays. We're still seeing the same thing. Now, Colleton even admitted that his system is going to allow a lot of shots on goal. And if those are all shots on goal from the outside, that's fine. You can live with that as long as you have somebody there to clean up rebounds and get the puck out of the zone. That's the idea behind the system. In theory, in practice, it stinks. It stinks like yesterday's garbage. Like, you're still seeing 3 years in, you're still seeing defensemen on the wrong side of the ice. You're still seeing 3 guys below the goal line. You're still seeing the slot and the front of the net left wide open for easy goals. I don't know what it is. It's stubborn. He's got to prove that he's the smartest guy in the room. Look at my great system. Just do what everybody's been saying. Your own players have probably been saying, just play your simple. Hockey's a simple game. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. And when things aren't working the way you want it, just simplify it and make the smart plays. they're thinking too much out there. That's part of the problem. Hockey players, they shouldn't be thinking too much. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, you have been bitching about this for a long time, so I'm glad you were able to get that out.
Until next week.
Okay, Shaun, what do you have to say about the state of the defense?
Yeah, leave the thinking to us, I guess, right? As far as the defense goes, obviously I agree with Greg. The structure seems to be the problem. So as far as the bad side, it's hard to not be repeating everything that literally Greg just said. They obviously need to clean up a lot of things from a team perspective, and that's obvious. We see that game in and game out, especially when they're collapsing against teams like Nashville. As far as the good goes, to be honest with you, I don't know if I'm just optimistic or delusional, but I'm not worried about their defense at all. And I don't mean that I'm not seeing what they're doing wrong, that I'm not seeing these little blunders and these mistakes or these pinches that they shouldn't be making or rushing up into a play that they should probably just be holding back on. I'm seeing all that too. But again, like Greg alluded to, this is a young defensive core. They have a lot of talent that's already there on their blue line. It's exciting to see these guys develop and get into the game and play. And the reality is we still need to remember that they've called this a rebuilding team, a rebuilding season. So I don't know what more people expected. I think these blips of success have sort of confused some people to think that they're supposed to be a lot better, when the reality is we're getting bonus success right now, and we have to recognize that there's still going to be a lot of development we're going to see. And from what we are seeing in that respect, the perspective needs to shift and realize that they're doing pretty good given the fact that it's supposed to be a development year. So I'm not worried at all. These are young kids getting a chance. They're going to make mistakes. Once they tie it all together, the systems will follow suit, and they're going to be just fine moving forward. I'm not worried.
All right, pretty well said there. Brooke, what do you think?
I kind of have a few thoughts about this. It's a hard question, I think, to answer because it's not as easy as last year where we honestly just, the players on our core stunk. And that was kind of easy to just say they should not be here. But this year, I think one, it could be personnel only because, but not in a bad way. It's just that they're young and they're developing and they're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But then my other thing is, it is probably the system too, but it does bug me, like with what Greg was saying about them leaving the slots wide open and blah, blah, blah. And it seems so straightforward. And I feel like if you're a defenseman in the NHL, you should know these things. It shouldn't have to be a system thing, or you should just know that. So it is kind of frustrating in those things. And it keeps happening every single night. And you're like, okay, it's not like it was just like a one and done thing. So that gets really frustrating. But also, I feel like if Colleton doesn't change this system that obviously is not working, then he's just putting everyone in a position to fail, and there's going to be no improvement. So I think we're fine in that way. I do think it could be better. But like I said, it's not in a bad way. It will get better as they develop and stuff. But yeah, personnel and systems I can see as a problem there. And just mental mistakes that just need to be cleaned up.
Well, I guess what I would add to this is that I really do, agreeing with Shaun. I think that they are headed in the right direction with the future on defense. It's not going to happen overnight. They're all young. They're all learning. They're all trying to embrace Colleton's system, which we have our issues with at times. But then, and they're all trying to gel together as a group too. But, the exciting part is that they really do have a young pool and a talented pool that is, kind of just getting started. We've seen Adam Boquist improve. We've seen people get better at, even within the system that, we're all saying, oh gosh, maybe it's, too difficult. It needs to be simplified. But everybody is really kind of living up to their expectations. Mitchell's as good as advertised. I know that he, we got sent down to Rockford and so did Bodine, and they both come back, and but they're learning as they go. And I just think that they're headed in the right direction. And, we were frustrated with the defense. We still are, but it's not as bad. And there's a good potential on the horizon. So we'll see if that pans out. All right, well, we're about halfway through the show here, so I will remind you that follow us on Twitter. You can see our Twitter handles below on the screen for each of us individually. And of course, follow the Hockey Writers on Twitter, and we're on YouTube and Facebook as well. So let's get to our next topic here. We did touch base on, I said that, that defense was question from a reader. In an effort to interact a little bit more with our fellow Blackhawks fans, we did ask you to send us some questions for the Blackhawks. And so we got quite a few responses. So I thought what we could do here is each one of us picked a question to respond to. So let's get to our first one. Where is it? Number one. And Shaun's going to take this one. So here we go. And obviously it has to do with goaltending. Why would you pick that?
Shocker.
Okay, let me read the question. Obviously, goaltender Kevin Lankinen stood on his head the last 2 games. And I think that this question was actually posed, during the sweep of the Panthers. So think back to that. I seem to see some better forechecking and physical play from more Hawks than usual. Will Stan Bowman consider adding some size now or next year to help stop some of the antics that teams are pulling on the Blackhawks? That's a good question. What do you say, Shaun?
That is a good question, and thank you for that. I have to say right off the cuff, I don't think Bowman's going to go and look for size for this particular region. I don't think that there's a correlation between what we're currently seeing as far as a lack of protection and Bowman looking to act on that for that specific cause. The reality is every GM in the league is always looking for size and looking for ways to increase that potential on the roster, whether they say it or not. It's just the reality, because that's what still helps win games and that's what still helps protect your players. And that's what we need to focus on, I think, in this particular case. Is not so much that Bowman needs to go out and get size. So no, I don't think he's going to go get size for this very reason. But what we have to reflect on is what we've already alluded to a lot in this show, is that this roster is built around youth. These are still kids who are trying to figure it out, develop. And as they develop their game, they're going to also develop physically. They're going to get stronger. They're going to get more mentally tough and physically tough at that. So I don't like seeing it either. As biased as I am, I don't like seeing goalies being tossed around or poked at or sprayed. I don't like any of that. And I want players to stand up for that, not because I want this to be, hockey of the 80s per se, but there needs to be a little bit of protection. There needs to be a little bit of a reason that opponents don't feel they can just get in and get away with it. So I'm all for this team progressing to that point. I don't think they need to get another player to do that, or players. I think they, as a group, just need to unite a little bit better and realize that that's what they're there to do, and that they're there to protect each other, not just the goalie, everybody. So I think as they grow and develop, they're going to start to do that more for each other, not because they bring someone else in, but because they're seeing it from within and doing that for each other.
So it's basically about them just gelling and figuring out when to push back.
That's exactly right.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Let's go to our next question here. Here it is. How important is this homestand, 8 of 10 at the United Center, which of course we're right in the middle of right now, in terms of getting points to make some separation in the standings? And Brooke wanted this one.
Yes. Thank you, Kyle, for that question. I know you're going to be watching this. It's way important. And I feel like for that good while, we had a very substantial lead in that 4th spot. I mean, it was probably 7 points, which is only a couple games. But for us, that seemed like a lot because everyone under us is a dumpster fire. Now we have to thank Detroit for, trying to help, beat all of these teams under us. But especially now with Nashville all of a sudden figuring this out way too late, this is now going to be a problem. I still think Columbus could be, if they could ever figure it out, because I do think they have the most depth out of everyone, but you need to pick up points in these homestands. You need to get points where you can get them, because obviously it's going to be a dogfight the rest of the way. And I feel like us coughing up this lead is kind of concerning. And if we don't start to pick it up, then we're going to have issues with our playoff hopes.
Yeah, and even being at home, it's like we're supposed to have the advantage. Anyway, okay, so question number 3, and this is for Greg. With the deadline near, there are many rumors. My question is, why in the world would Matthias Janmark, one of your best shooters, and others such as Calvin DeHaan, because he is not a do not move guy, on the bubble now and as possible exposure for Seattle? Trade deadline.
All righty. Well, okay. We'll handle Janmark first because he's the easier of the two. You pretty much signed him to trade him at the deadline and flip him for assets. Stan Bowman said we were rebuilding. It's the perfect guy. You get a veteran who didn't look like he had a lot of options. He's worked out well. His value has skyrocketed. He's the perfect guy that a team that wants to add depth for a long run. He made it to the Stanley Cup final last year, perfect guy. I know he's become a fan favorite and he's a good player. But if someone calls me up and says, I'll give you a second round pick for Matthias Janmark, you make that trade in the blink of an eye. That's part of the reason he was here in the first place. This is a very deep draft, talented draft coming up. So you want as many picks in it as possible, not necessarily high picks, but if you can get extra second, third round picks by moving a guy like Janmark, moving a guy like Soderberg, you do it. Yes, they've been valuable to our team, but a team that's supposed to be rebuilding needs to stock up on draft picks and prospects. So those are your most likely candidates to be traded. As far as DeHaan goes, there obviously he's a trade rumor guy. Him and Connor Murphy again are both guys that teams that looking to make deep runs would love to add. Now, the weekend DeHaan had, that trade value might not be quite as high as it was, say, 72 hours ago, but still, he's a proven guy. But they both are good candidates for the expansion draft to leave unprotected as guys that could be picked because they both have 1 year left on their contract. Murphy will probably be protected. I think they're big fans of Murphy, and they may want to keep him around as kind of like to be the next veteran guy to lead these young defenders. He just turned 28. He's got 1 more year in his contract at $3.8 million. DeHaan has 1 more year on his deal. He's turning 30 in May. His cap hit is 4.5. So it's kind of a 50-50. DeHaan would be the perfect guy to leave unprotected and have Seattle take because he'd be a good candidate for Seattle to take on an expansion team. But again, if your phone rings and someone says, I'll give you a second and a fourth round pick or a third and a fifth for Calvin DeHaan, you kind of got to take that too. So I'm not predicting anything when it comes to DeHaan if he's getting traded or not. But I think Janmark, don't order that reverse retro number 13 because I don't think you're going to get a chance to wear
it. The person that asked this question, I will tell you that my husband is a huge Janmark fan, and he's very upset too. He doesn't want to see him go, and I know none of us really want to see these players go because you like them and they do well. But
yeah, but he's gonna be UFA, so you could trade him and then maybe bring him back. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, but it does. If he really liked it here and they kind of make a gentleman's agreement, say, hey, we're gonna trade you for the second round pick, but July 1st you'll be hearing from us. Maybe you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, it's all about getting those assets, especially when you are rebuilding to try to get as much as you can. And if the offer is right, then you're gonna listen to it. All right, well, my question that I chose to answer is, the Blackhawks have significantly improved the power play. What did Coach Colleton do to work with the team to mark that adjustment, and how are they working on improving the face-off percentage? So, the power play actually hasn't been very good recently, but I think this question was actually posed a little bit before that. And I think that them actually getting better coincided with Andrew Shaw and Dylan Strome were actually on the power play, and they had to be replaced for concussion protocol. So you had Carl Soderberg step in, you had Ryan Carpenter step in on that top power play unit. And Soderberg's job is basically being that front presence, whereas who else did I say? Ryan Carpenter, a little bit more of a rover guy, to get pucks along the board and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, Brandon Hagel replaced Carpenter, and now Kirby Dach has replaced Hagel. So there's been some personnel changes. And honestly, I don't really think they've really changed anything too much. Basically, the idea is to create good puck movement and, to try to find the open shot. But these things are just going to go through their ebbs and flows, and they're hot and cold. And, it could be hot with the same personnel and then all of a sudden be cold, like we've seen the past 3 games. So hopefully they're going to get a little bit more on track with this. And, Doc's continued presence on the top power play unit hopefully can help that as well. So fingers crossed there. Regarding face-offs, I think it's all about practice, and experience as well. The more the practice, the better you're going to get at it. You've got some young players that haven't been doing all that great, but they're actually getting better. So that's exciting. And I remember actually back when, Jonathan Toews, who's such a great centerman, face-off guy, he would talk about just having to know the tendencies of each referee and how they drop the puck, or just the tendencies of the opposing player. and what their tendency was. So it's all about practice, and that's how they're hopefully going to improve. So let's move on to our next topic. Biggest Blackhawks competitor in the playoff race. So the Blackhawks currently have 37 points. They've lost their fourth spot with this last game. Unfortunately, the Predators also have 37 points, but they're winning in regulation games. They have 2 more regulation wins. Columbus Blue Jackets actually lost 2 games to the Detroit Red Wings. Our colleagues over there in Detroit are probably pretty happy about that. They have 34 points. Dallas Stars 31 points, but they have 4 games in hand still. So unless one of these teams really pulls ahead, it's going to be a fight to the finish. And with that in mind, I would like us to basically just touch on who we think is the Blackhawks' biggest competition for the playoff race. Brooke, what do you think?
I still say Columbus. Even though we can't beat Nashville, like I said, I still think they stink. I don't see them really kind of getting, I know they're on a hot streak right now, but I can't really see it continuing. I just don't think they have it. And like I said, I know that makes me sound hypocritical because we can't beat them, but that's just what I see. And I still think, I know Columbus is a hot mess, but I still think they have the most depth to compete for that spot. I think they should be a lot better than they are. So if something happens to them at the trade deadline, something sparks them, I still think they can beat us there. I still think they're big competition. So, but like I said, you got to play the game. So who knows what can happen.
Okay.
Hell, maybe Detroit will catch up.
Hey!
Because they've been beating everyone lately.
I'll get to that later. Okay, Greg, what do you think?
I don't know. It changes every week. Columbus was red hot, and then they lose 2 in a row to Detroit. So now are they done or what? Nashville, they're all of a sudden red hot. They're jumped ahead. When we a month ago at the beginning of the month, I had you guys all predict, will the Blackhawks still be in a playoff spot at the end of this month? We all said yes. And right now, with 1 game left, they're not. So, I've been harping on Dallas to say, hey, let's not forget about them for the last few weeks. But now I'm kind of like, they kind of look like they stink too. So who knows? So I'm going to say this: the Blackhawks' biggest competitor to making the postseason is themselves. Stop beating yourselves. Play your game. Stop throwing the puck in the middle of the damn ice like you've been doing the last 3 games. Don't beat yourselves. You're not talented enough to dig yourselves out of self-made mistakes. If you lose to a better team, you lose to a better team. Stop beating yourselves and maybe get a few of these games into overtime. That wouldn't hurt either. That's where they were getting a lot of those points early in the season. They were losing, but they were getting that point. So let's just work on not beating ourselves and getting the game into a 3-on-3 and see what happens. That's my recipe for success.
Yeah, I kind of miss our overtimes. We haven't had that in a while.
Oh, that was fun.
Hey,
I know.
If there's a season to be I don't like the loser point. I think it stinks, but if there's a season to be a fan of it, this is the one.
Okay. Shaun, what do you have to say about the playoff race?
Obviously this division is getting tight. We've seen that. We've seen the Hawks be on the wrong side of that. Obviously this past weekend. To touch on the not to sway off too much off topic here, but the weird thing with the Hawks, kind of touching on what you all bringing it all to life, what you've all already said, but they just don't seem to play very well against some of these teams, Nashville being one of them. But I don't think that speaks to Nashville being good. I think it just speaks to the Blackhawks not knowing how to play against them. So I'm not too worried about Nashville in that respect. Greg made me a believer. I'll say that right outright. And I want to give credit where it's due that like he said, he kept telling us, don't overlook Dallas. And I'm certainly not going to. Greg also just said in the same episode that he's changed his own mind, but
maybe
I'll carry it forward because as much as they are playing pretty crappy lately, I think we have to realize that they're clearly underperforming. This is the reigning Western Conference champion squad. They're obviously not playing very good hockey, but for some reason they're still kind of staying relevant. When they do get back to health, if they do get a hot streak going, with the games in hand that they have, even just catching up to games played, who knows what they're going to do? And I think that's what scares me most is the mystery. All these other teams around us, there's kind of similar games played. We kind of know what to get from them. We know what we can do. Dallas has the advantage where they still have games where we don't know what's going to happen. So from a fan perspective, that scares me most is the mystery. So I would just say watch out for Dallas for that very reason.
Well, I guess also maybe you can kind of say that kind of an underperforming team is a dangerous team because of the hunger that comes with that too.
Exactly. And then once they start catching up with those games, like I said, who knows what they're going to do with them, right? To get any of these guys back, and they have the advantage of having more time. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Brooke. In my preview, I said that I was inclined to worry more about the Blue Jackets and the Stars than the Predators, but that all kind of went to pot this last series. I think the Predators definitely have the Blackhawks number. They play a hard and direct game, and they were all over the Blackhawks, and they just couldn't do much with it. And but they do play the Predators 4 more times. So let's hope that they can turn that around. But they're going to have to get hot, and we do have to face the possibility that they might not be in the playoff race when it's all said and done. But the last 2 games of the season are against the Dallas Stars. So let's hope that let's keep our fingers crossed that those games count.
Watch us all be wrong and Detroit just comes in and takes that 4th spot.
I'll take that bet. One thing to add on that last topic, maybe, just maybe, let's stop saying the Predators stink and let's call them a really good team, and then maybe that will have the adverse effect. Maybe they're watching and maybe they just want to stick it to Brooke and say, look, we don't stink, we're good. So maybe you're the one giving them the extra motivation. So let's say they're a slightly above average team, and then see what happens.
They're an amazing team.
But I'll counter. I don't think that the Predators are coming out and playing well at all. I think the Hawks just stink against them.
Yeah, well, they don't. Well, as I said earlier, they don't make adjustments. Make an adjustment. Let's see what happens.
I hope you're right, because they play them 4 more times. So
all in Nashville, I believe, right?
Make that adjustment. What's that?
Are all those games in Nashville, right? Was the first 2 down there? I don't remember.
I thought no, it was home. You're right.
So all 4 games are down in Nashville. So yeah, good luck with that.
Oh frick.
More good news on a Monday.
Woohoo!
On that note, we are going to wrap things up tonight with our predictions for the next week. So let's see. The Blackhawks have some stiff competition these next couple games. They host the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday and Thursday. And so the Canes are currently 2nd place with 49 points. And then, like we just touched on, they're going to wrap up the week against the Predators in Nashville. Greg, you alluded to it earlier. On April 1st, you asked us all if in the beginning of March, you asked us all if on April 1st that they were going to be in a playoff spot. And we'll know, let's see, when is April 1st? April 1st is, they've got 1 more game. They've got the Tuesday game before. So they have to win that one, and the Predators would have to lose. So anyway, final thoughts. Before we go, a few final thoughts, predictions on this week ahead, on the Canes, on the Predators game. What do you think is going to happen, Greg?
I don't know. I can't. We can never figure these guys out. We all were doom and gloom for the Panthers last week, but they're going to beat the Predators, and they did the exact opposite. They've played Carolina well this year for the most part. Carolina kind of plays a style that fits the Hawks style a little better. So those should be good games. They're going to be tough to win. Carolina's a very good team, very fast. So they just got to clean it up. Just play smarter hockey. Don't beat yourselves, like I said before. Nashville, until they beat them, I'm just going to predict that they lose. So, I don't know. 3 games this week, get 3 points. Win a game, get a game in overtime, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Shaun, what do you think?
Yeah, those Hurricanes Hawks games are fun. Fast, skilled. And the Hawks come ready to play, which is weird because contrary to when they're playing a team like Nashville, that they let them run all over them, they play up to their competition. So I think we're going to see some good battles there. I think we can keep expecting that throughout the rest of the season when they are playing up to their competition. As far as points go, I don't know. I'm not even going to try to fathom a guess on what they're going to actually come out of this week with. But contrary to Greg's stance, I'm going to keep it short and sweet and say that my main focus is that they will beat the Predators on Saturday. And that's really all I care about, despite clearly needing them to win against Carolina. But my focus is zoned right on next weekend and beating the Predators once and for all, so we can stop this nonsense that they're any good at all, because they're not.
Okay. All right, Brooke, what's your predictions for this week? Canes and the Predators.
Nashville really got us in like a weird angry funk. Like it's just they're so irritating. I can't deal. But so I don't know. I think if we go on this weird pattern we've been on, like sweep Florida, lose to the Predators, then we should win against Carolina. And like Greg said, they actually haven't looked terrible against Carolina this year, ironically. Last year they looked like a train wreck compared to them. But this year we've actually matched up with them pretty well. So I will predict that we will get at least one win out of there. But I also get where you guys are saying about it probably is more important to beat the Predators, because Carolina, I feel like they're kind of a lock. It doesn't matter if we beat or lose to them because they're just going to stay where they are. It doesn't really affect them. So, but like I said, I will predict at least one win. I don't think we're going to get swept because we have been underperforming a lot this week in a lot of areas. And like we just talked about, they should be hungry if they're not playing up to expectations, which they haven't been. So hopefully that works out well for us. So I'm just going to go out and say again, 4 points, a split hopefully seems whatever. I don't know. Like I said, they prove me wrong all the time. I suck at this. Sorry.
All right. Well, every point counts here. So, and the funny thing is I kind of like the Hurricanes. They're a likable team. They're a lot of fun. Our editing manager, Dean, is a big fan. So I'm sure he's going to be giving us all a bunch of crap.
That's why we have to beat the Hurricanes.
Yes.
But I do own a bunch of jerk shirts, so I won't be brokenhearted if they lose.
But it would be nice. The Canes are a good team. It would be nice. It would be awesome. I'm predicting that they're going to split. And I would also really, really like it if they could beat their nemesis. And I think they're going to. I think they're going to do it. They're going to beat the Predators. And they're going to do it this Saturday. So 4 out of 6 points is what I'm hoping. So anybody have any final thoughts?
Predators suck.
Thank you. I was going to say it.
All right, you guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Blackhawks Banter. Please be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Oh, and we had tons of fun answering all of your questions, so keep those coming. Just let us know at the bottom of the comments or wherever. Just keep asking them. We'd love to respond to them. We'll do our best to do that. Everybody have an awesome week. Here's to some Hawks wins, and we'll see you all here next week.